Hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Daniel. If this is anyone's first Digital Marketing Institute webinar, I'd like to obviously welcome you to the process of how we're going to go through the assignments. And this webinar is actually going to be focused on assignment 1 and part 2 of assignment 1 as well. So just as good practice, guys, I just always like to confirm that I can be seen okay and I can be heard okay. So if you wouldn't mind, just in the questions bar you have available to you through GoToWebinar, just if somebody wouldn't mind saying that they can see and hear me okay, and we'll move on with today's webinar. Great stuff, guys. Okay, so I've got confirmed here that everything is working okay. And now effectively, guys, today we're just going to move through the assignment and part 2 of assignment 1 as well. So if you guys have questions, as always, when we're running through the assignment, please do ask them. We'll have a Q&A at the end, and we'll hopefully usually devote about 10 minutes to the Q&A. Sometimes I can answer the questions as we're moving through, but nevertheless, please do submit your questions, and we'll try to put some clarity on any issues you have, specific, of course, to the sections we're going to run through today. All right, guys, so on the agenda today, we've looked at in a previous webinar for assignment 1, we've looked at the executive summary, the research methodology, and the target audience as well. And we also gave some details on selecting a company. So if you want more information on that, you can always ask me on those questions, not in today's webinar, but you can obviously ask me via our support form. Alternatively, you can email me. But what I would like to kind of disclose about that is that information and that webinar is available on the webinar list along with the supporting slides. So the information is there, and if you've missed it or maybe you just want to recap, please don't worry, you can go back and you'll also be able to watch this webinar at a certain point in the future. Usually I get them up and operational within the same day. Sometimes it might take me till tomorrow to have it uploaded on YouTube successfully, but nevertheless, this content will become available. So let's just kind of roll right in now to the agenda of what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to talk about the specific sections of 4 to 7 for assignment 1. So that includes the evolution and impact of digital technologies, the digital technologies and their impact on industry on a local and global level. And then we're also going to look at the final section, which is future trends and the impact on the target audiences in industry. Then we're going to have a fairly in-depth look at referencing and appendices, and that's going to be a bit retrospective as well to the first couple of sections because the same rules apply for every section throughout your assignment. We'll try and put some clarity on the best practice of using the Harvard referencing methods and also how to maybe formulate your appendices and reference lists just to ensure that you have the best marks. Then we'll have a quick checklist as well to make sure that you're comfortable with submitting your assignment okay and that you've made sure you put all the mandatory information in place, and that you're pretty much confident in your work and you're happy to submit. So if this is anyone's first webinar, just a quick introduction. I'm not going to take too much time on this. Obviously, assignment 1 is a 5,000 word digital marketing research assignment that requires you to undertake research on a selected company regarding their specific target audience that you identify through research and also the industry that that company is operating in as well. Okay, it's an assignment that's based on a company of your selection, and not forgetting that you need to verify with the company that they agree to use, that they've agreed to let you use their company or organization for the purposes of this assignment. But let's move on now, guys, and get right into the evolution and impact of digital technologies relevant to the target audience as well. So there's 30% going for this section, so it's quite substantial. And in this section, you need to look for the digital technologies that are relevant to your identified target audience. So you've already done your target audience section and you've identified hopefully target personas, you've developed your target personas out of them. And now you're looking at selecting 4 to 5 digital technologies. And you're going to look at the evolution of these digital technologies over the last 5 to 8 years. And then you're also going to analyze the impact, both in a negative and positive manner. So you can be critical in this section as well, all right, on your personas. So a lot of students sometimes ask, what's the difference between the evolution and the impact? And I'll try and put some clarity on this. And I've got an example coming up as well, so hopefully it makes a bit more sense. But when you're looking at the evolution, that's quite literally in the last 5 to 8 years. That is how the technology has changed. Any changes that have been made in terms of maybe interface, in terms of new available features, possibly even in terms of its distribution. Maybe it's available in different networks or different regions. And you're looking at all those kind of effects on the selected technology in the last 5 to 8 years. If you select a technology that might only be operational for the last 2 years, maybe it's a new technology, that's fine as well, okay? It's just if the technology has been operational for the last 10, maybe 12 years, you just have to roll back the clock to about 8 years. But if it's a new enough technology that you want to really dive into and give some insights, it's applicable to your target audience, you can do that. But please do remember that my camera's just gone, so I'm just going to shut it down and actually turn it back on, and hopefully that'll work. Your technology, sorry, just to reiterate that, what you want to do is assess them. If a technology has only been operational perhaps for 2 or 3 years, that's fine. You can include that technology as well, but just make sure to give really in-depth insights to when that technology actually started and how it is all the way up to present date as well. When you are looking at then analyzing the impacts, you're going to bring that back and relate it to your target personas. All right. So if I was looking at technologies such as email marketing, and I look at the development of how maybe marketing automation flows are set up with email marketing, or some available features that have been brought into that particular channel, and the evolution that's happened within it, then I want to say to myself, okay, well, what kind of impact has that had on my specific target audience? And I want to look at how the features, the assets, maybe the restrictions that have even been brought in with the evolution. Like if we take the likes of Facebook as an example, some restrictions or some changes have been implemented due to restrictions that have been brought in, such as very recently the availability of allowing users on Facebook to change their off-site settings to see who's actually going to be advertising to them on the platform. So there's an example of an evolutionary change that's happened. And then you want to roll that out to the impacts and verify the impacts on your target personas as well. So look at what you've identified in the online behaviors and the online channels that they're using, and relate it back and contrast it with the evolution of the technologies. Okay, my camera hasn't come back. I think it will come back. Apologies for that. I'm going to continue on, but it should come back. I've been having a bit of difficulty with my camera at the moment, but nevertheless, I'll continue on with today's webinar. So when we go into this, I've got an example here now that I know I gave an example there of an email marketing one, but I've got one here that might put some more insights on it. And if we look at this, we can see here, this is obviously Google Ads. And just as an example of one of the evolutionary traits of Google Ads is that, for example, they gave expanded text ads in 2016 was one example of an evolutionary trait in Google Ads. And also Google removed their pay-per-click ads from the right-hand side of the search engine results page as well. And they were then incorporated into the main body organic and paid results. So that's an evolutionary trait that was specific to Google Ads, 2 of them. But if we take the second one, which is the pay-per-click being brought into the main body results, and I'll just pick this example out now. This isn't specific to a target persona, which you should do by all means. I've just related this back to kind of a general target audience of information that I've found, because I obviously don't have target personas to do this, but that's what you need to do for your assignment with the ones that you've already created. But we have here that 58%, and this is actually course content, from Cathal, who talks on the pay-per-click module, suggests that 58% click on the first ad they see on mobile devices. Okay, so, and I've just wrote it here, the incorporation of ads into the organic listing has directly impacted the target audience. If you had identified that your target audience were using paid ads as a primary channel, okay, and their methods and their behaviors for doing so as well. Okay, so again, just those impacts should be specific to your target personas. If you find some additional supplementary information on maybe trend reports, consumer trend reports that lend themselves quite well to your target personas and to the evolution of the technology that you're specifying, please do also include that, and just say to yourself or say in the assignment that this qualifies a lot of the contents that have already been previously established in my target personas, and refer back to the 1 or 2 personas that you're discussing as well. Not forgetting that you should devote an equal amount of word count to the evolution and also to the impact. So when you're formulating this section, to say to yourself, okay, I need to give an approximate amount of word count to the evolution and an approximate amount of word count to the impact, very similar, and doing that specific to each technology as well. Okay, so it's a good devotion of word count. It should be an approximate equal amount to evolution and impact per each technology. Okay, and these sections can be obviously subbed out or put subheadings on. So to clearly define the differences, you may want to have a subheading of evolution to one technology, and then give the overall impacts on your target personas as well. Same technology, but you're separating out the evolution and impact. It's a good way of allocating the appropriate word count, and it also clearly identifies what you're defining as evolutionary traits and the direct impacts on your target personas. Okay, so I hope that gives a bit of insight into that section, and we're going to move on now to the digital technologies and their impacts on the local and global. All right, so let's get right into that now. I think my camera's come back, which is good news, and it's actually stalled again, so I'm just going to turn my camera off, and I do apologize for that. Okay, so let's get into this section. When we look at the impact of digital technologies on your selected industry from a local and global perspective, in this section, you're going to need to select 4 technologies, or 4 to 5 technologies. Most students tend to select 4 and drill down in quite a detailed analysis of those ones, okay? There's 20% going for this section, and you also want to consider the impacts from a digital technology standpoint on the industry, right? And provide case studies to amplify them as well. So what that means is, when you're uploading your information essentially into this section, when I say uploading, sorry, I mean when you're compiling your information into this section, you want to make sure that you clearly discuss for each selected technology a local case study example and a global case study example. Now, one problem that can actually happen with this particular section is that if you've got quite a niche company, or it's possibly even a company that's you know, fairly high level, but maybe it's operating in a local area that there's not much in terms of case studies. My advice would be obviously to keep looking and look harder online and see if you can find a relatable case study specific to your industry on a local level. But if you're struggling, you can expand the proximity of your search. So as an example, if I was evaluating we're based here in Dublin at the Digital Marketing Institute, and if I was establishing what I could do for evaluating a local competitor or a local case study, I would say to myself, okay, I can't find anything in the Dublin region. I'd expand it out then to the Leinster province, which surrounds a lot of counties in Dublin, and then I'd expand it out even further for a local one, actually for the Republic of Ireland as its own local case study. Okay, and I try and find a case study that was in the Republic of Ireland that I could use as a local example. If I had to go further, I could potentially go out as far as the UK. It's starting to get quite global, but nevertheless, the cultures can be the same. And as long as you can refer that, like, you know, this is where I found my local case study due to consistent search was not available on local examples. And this is why this one has been incorporated as a local one, and refer back to why it's been selected as well. So there will be similarities there. You know, it's the same industry, perhaps the culture is the same, perhaps the demographics are very similar as well, and even perhaps the technologies they're using are very similar. Global case studies usually not a problem. Students, usually you should find it quite easy to find a global case study example of the selected technology specific to the industry you're operating in as well. I do have some resources coming up that should help with this, but you need to have a local and a global case study for each technology, all right, to really not only identify what's going on in your industry in terms of technologies, but that will allow you to compare and contrast. Maybe there's something going on differently in selected regions in the world as well by using the same technology. All right, so contrast the local and global examples, see if there's any differences, see if there's any innovations possibly going on in another region that could be used in your region. It could be advantageous, and it could play into your second assignment strategy, digital strategy assignment. So just as an example, I've got a few listed here again, and keeping them in Dublin, obviously, for the first one. And this is just if your industry was automotive. Now, I know all students are using different industries, they're using different technologies, so it's hard to drill down on specifics that are applicable to everybody. But nevertheless, these examples should provide some clarity. You do not present your case study examples in this method, by the way. It's just that you should, I've just put them to formulate them this way to put a bit of clarity on kind of what case studies might be that you might use for specific technologies. But you should just define your case studies with informative, descriptive information in this section and providing the necessary Harvard citation as well beside them. But if we just run through some of these as examples. If we look at this, it's obviously it's defined as a local case study. The region is Dublin, which are hypothetical company. Even though these are real companies in this manner, we've got our industry is automotive, and the technology selected is social networks as well. And I've just given a summary of what the technology is, because you don't want to be too vague on this when you're selecting technologies. You want to give some insights into actually what specifically how this technology is being used. Okay, so it's social networks, but it's actually a lookalike audience through Facebook, and it was used to amplify its social media marketing campaigns. And it was the Audi, the car manufacturer here. So you can click into this. I'll upload these slides, and you can actually look at this case study that's available through Facebook. And if you were using if you were in the automotive industry in Dublin, this would be a great example if your technology was social networks to use as a case study. The same goes for this here, another one, a global case study, and this is in the Middle Eastern region, but it's automotive and it's social networks as well. Okay, so it's just kind of, now I could compare and contrast possibly how these different same technology, but different methods being used. And obviously it's the same company, but nevertheless, I'm just using it as an example. Audi built a smarter lead generation engine on LinkedIn. So this is actually LinkedIn as a social platform here, by using LinkedIn precision advertising to identify leads applicable to their target audience. Okay, and you can click in there and see that in more detail at your own time as well. If we move on then a little bit and just stating another technology, just to slightly give a bit more of a kind of bit more of an eclectic approach to the technology selected. I have augmented reality here, and I have again sticking with the automotive industry, using the augmented reality to consumers across a number of Irish dealerships. And there's just a link there to a newspaper report that showcases this case study. So case studies don't have to be applicable strictly to the likes of the technology you're using. And when I say that, I mean, you don't have to say, okay, I'm using Facebook or I'm using Instagram. Now I need to find a case study that they verified. That's not needed. Case studies can be found from a vast array of resources online. So they can be used on those methods, as I said, with the Facebook business pages or the Google business pages. But they can also be found possibly in academic journals. They can be found in textbooks. They can be found in verifiable news reports online, or even as I said here, look at Sky News, maybe look at BBC News, look at CNN, look at independent.ie. This is obviously an Irish newspaper article. But depending on your region, please do look at verifiable, informative sources, and you can use them as long as they lend themselves well to case study attributes, which are obviously defining the technology that's used and the overall results of how the technology was used as well. All right, and again, not forgetting that it's specific to your industry that you've selected for the purposes of this assignment. Finally, we've got a global example here, and this is actually, again, it's the same, it's the automotive industry, but I've just kind of changed the company. So it's obviously Mercedes. It's augmented reality as well, but they're using augmented reality actually not in a tangible dealership. They were using it as incorporated into an app design, which would actually allow you to showcase their product and overlay the results into a real environment. So you could actually see their new car being advertised by using the app design in a room, in a house, or in the driveway of a garden, etc. And please do click in and gain more insights into this. But this is probably a better example of showcasing how the same technology in different regions with different companies are using it in a slightly different manner. Okay. Again, I won't run through these too much, but just again, 5G as well as another technology, and just showcasing how it's been implemented out in the Dublin region. And then obviously here we have how it's being implemented out as well globally with its Spanish region. And again, just getting some more insights there, showcasing that it's actually the company is Huawei and continuing its expansion as well. So you don't want to be too vague, because 5G is obviously, it's a massive technology, and it's going to really define digital marketing in the future. We'll get into that a bit later when we talk about future trends. But just here you can see that it's a fairly precise kind of case study of how it's being used and how it's being implemented as well. Okay, so just some links here that might help you out with this section. You might find some case studies in academic journals, as I said, and these can be used as well. Like academic journals can be used to amplify all the sections of your assignment. So here's some free resources. You've got Journ, you've got Core, and you've got Duaz as well. or Joao, sorry, struggle to pronounce that last one. Also check out Google Scholar. You know, you can go in there and look at a lot of articles. Some are gated and you won't have access unless you're maybe part of some kind of alumni, possibly from your old university. But nevertheless, you're not expected to pay for any content in terms of academic journals. So please don't sign up for anything that requires payment. But these are free resources and they should help you out. But if you go on any of these resources or any other ones from Google Scholar and they ask you to pay for content, please don't do that. You don't need to. Alternatively as well, so there you go, you've got your academic databases there. Check out our membership platform as well, the Digital Marketing's membership platform. There's a lot of articles and case studies, toolkits as well, so it's a vast array of resources on that, but you know, they might help you, and not just for this section, but for when you're doing all your research as well. Here we are as well, case studies for social media and for Google. I've listed actually out their business pages here. It might make it a bit easier for you. So if you're looking at any of these social media platforms as one of your technologies for case studies, click in here and you might find some success stories. You can also drill down on the likes of Facebook and on Facebook and LinkedIn as well, and see what kind of sector or what kind of region could be beneficial to you if you're looking for some case study examples. And then we've got Google as well, which has some success stories. It might help you out if they're the platforms that you're using or the technologies that you're using. Okay, so let's just get into the future trend section now. And this is obviously going for 15%, the future trend section. And you want to consider 4 to 5 digital trends, okay, and technologies that will both challenge and provide opportunities for your industry and your audience as well. So when you're looking at future trends, and there's one thing that we kind of should really discuss here, is that if you're saying, okay, I want to talk about social media as a future trend, that's absolutely fine. It's a technology that exists now. So, you know, you say to yourself, can I use that? Yes, you can, but you need to only talk about in this section the future aspects or future trends of this specific technology. The same would go for even blockchain, or also for the likes of blockchain, or maybe even blockchain or artificial intelligence. I mean, these do exist at the moment, but if you were just to specify content that's currently how they're being used, like right now, or even backdated in the last 2 or 3 years, it's not great. We need you to really kind of find industry trend reports of future technologies, future trends, where the industry is going, what technologies are using that have been predicted. I mean, predicted is probably the core word because obviously it's a future trend. So find out what the research is showcasing is likely to be what's going on in the future, and really specify of what's going to happen kind of in a future-proof way. All right. Sometimes students would just tend to talk about a kind of technology, like 5G is another great example. 5G is being implemented currently throughout, but it is actually operational in some places. So if you were to talk about that as something that's going on right at the moment, it's about finding out where it's going to be and how it's going to be used in the future from industry trend reports. All right. And I've got here actually an example that might help a lot of students out. Now, it's on the membership platform, and it's a really good white paper that was actually done from our Global Industry Advisory Council here. I think it's a great starting point for this section because it's specific to digital marketing technologies, all right? And that's what you're kind of looking at here for this section. And it's called the State of Digital. There's a webinar on it actually that you can watch, but there's also a white paper. I would recommend that you do both. Watch the webinar, get an overview of it with Cathal Mellon, the same one of our subject matter experts, and then go in and read the white paper. It's very informative. It's a very interesting read. It talks about what's going to happen digital currently, and then what's going to happen after 2020. All right, specific to digital marketing. I've just taken a screenshot here of some of the future technologies that's going to showcase, and you can see that you've got AI, you've got machine learning, social customer service, emotional engagement, and then obviously marketing automation are going to take priority in future technologies. So go in, read this white paper, see if it applies to your industry, and see if it applies to the channels channels and technologies operating in your industry as well. And if so, it's a great starting point to look at what future trends for certain technologies might be at. You can see here actually in this screenshot that I've taken, these are the ones that are currently going on. And some of them are obviously current technologies, and this is what I was saying earlier, but you want to really drill down into what's going to happen in the future. All right, that's available on the membership platform. You can click onto that link and it should take you there as well. I recommend watching the webinar and also reading the white paper. It's a very informative read. It talks about the different regions as well, North America, Europe, and obviously the Asian region as well. So specific to where your company is based, maybe where their target audience is and what technologies they're using, it could be quite informative. But there's a lot of future trends articles as well from industry online reports. Just search through Google, search through maybe again even some news websites, gain some insights and see where it's going in terms of that. And you want to, in this section, when you're describing the future trends, you might have a bit of you can use a similar technology, as I said, that might have been identified in another section. That's absolutely fine. The difference will be the section requires different content. And again, as I've reiterated a couple of times, I apologize, it's just it needs to be future focused. All right. So I think that probably covers those 3 sections at the moment. A good overview of them and possibly some good insights and some good resources. So I just want to get into referencing now. And when you're doing your references at the end of this assignment, remember that you need to include obviously a reference list that you've created based on the internal citations of your work and all the research that's been conducted for your work. And it has to appear your references at the end of your assignment. And then you're also going to need to have an appendices at the end of your assignment as well. So your reference list is going to house all of the source material of the content that you used for the purposes of the sections of assignment 1. And that would include obviously the title or the author of the document, where the document is available, where it was accessed, last time it was accessed by as well, and the corresponding year. All right, Harvard guidelines are available in our on our learning platform. And remember, Harvard referencing should be arranged alphabetically by the author or the title if there's no specific author as well. But do check the Harvard referencing guidelines if needed. And not forgetting, guys, that all the information, if you're providing a direct quotation, perhaps you're just paraphrasing some information or just referring to some content that's in an additional supporting piece of content that you found online in a textbook, maybe in an academic journal, or maybe in a news report, reference either the author or perhaps the company like that the website is on if there's no specific author, and then the corresponding year. I'm sure you're all familiar with internal citations. It would be as you actually see in one of my examples there, I have Mellon and then obviously the comma and then the corresponding year beside it when I gave that example in the target audiences. All right. So referencing in just a bit more detail here, it's worth 5% to reference correctly. So that's the structure of how you reference, worth 5%. But let's not forget that when you reference appropriately and correctly into certain sections, you're amplifying your work. So you're not only stating elements that you've researched, but you're verifying it from additional authentic sources. And that's really going to amplify the content in your work and actually get you a higher grade because the content is better. It's it's researched well. It's going to have concise information that's from obviously someone who's taken a look at this industry or taken a look at these digital technologies, and now you're paraphrasing that work and you're supporting your own work with qualifying some comments or some research that you've done with this additional these additional resources. So while it's only worth 5% for the structure, good referencing really lends itself well to promoting your own content and verifying your own content as well. Not forget that you will need to put an appendices together as well. So your appendices is going to contain your survey, your interviews, and your questions and your responses. So your references, as I said, is going to have all your apologies. Your references is going to have all the listing of all the sources of where you got your academic journals, possibly websites where you were gaining information, or even textbooks. All right, and then your appendices is going to contain the likes of your primary research, such as surveys and your interviews, or even if you had focus group data, and your analytics reports. Now, analytics reports, obviously, for the purposes of this assignment, is secondary research, but it needs to be included. So if I was referring to something from my target audience, from Google Analytics that I've identified, maybe I'm selecting the demographics and the region that I've pulled from Google Analytics of my company, and this is what I've used to formulate the location and the age profile in my target audience. I want to be able to have that screenshot of the analytics, and even you can highlight the area that you're pulling the information from. So you can highlight the area on the screenshot and to have obviously correctly label the screenshot. It could be appendices A, figure 1, Google Analytics data, maybe demographics to drill down, and then you've got that highlight of where the demographics is on the screenshot. And now I can actually, when I'm doing my target audience, my target personas, I can actually put a citation beside where I obtained the data. So if I have as my age profile for one of my target personas, maybe 18 to 24, now I can have appendices A, Google Analytics, Fig 1 beside that. So now straight away I've validated where I've got that information to confirm the age profile for that particular persona. So citations to go into your target personas, guys, whether it's related to your primary or secondary research as well. So if maybe you formulated something from one of your survey questions, maybe there was an age question on your survey, or what digital channels are you using was a question, and Facebook is the primary one they're all on, and you've got that as one of your survey questions. Label that survey question and the summary of, and label the answers. You know, Fig 2, Fig 3, you know, question 1, question 2 answers, a summary of answers. Then you can directly link that back up to when you're formulating your personas or any other information that's in your assignment in any other sections. Maybe you're just disclosing some information around how the impact section, evolution and impact, and you want to relate it back to those target personas as needed. And you can then showcase it via some of the screenshots if needed. So all your questions, all your summary of answers, and when I say summary of answers, I mean because I imagine a lot of you have put your surveys out through Google Forms or SurveyMonkey, and when you ask obviously a closed question, it's probably going to give you a nice bar chart or a concise graph back of the answers of that particular question. So that's all that needs to be included. You don't need to include individual responses of any survey respondents. It's that summarized version of responses, but all questions need to be included. All right. And again, screenshots of your surveys, just put them in the appendices. It's fine. You can also put a link additionally to your survey if you have it online and you want to put that link, but please do put your screenshots in as well at the bottom of the appendices. Okay, and not forgetting Google Analytics, and then any other supporting documentation. So if you have some supporting image documentation maybe for your case studies, as I said, and you want to put that in just to bounce up your content, that's fine. There's no limit on your appendices, remember that. It's a good idea to separate them out though. Use one appendices for surveys, use one appendices for your secondary research, and so on and so forth. Appendices A, appendices B, just label appropriately. Again, include a one-page summary of your organization as well. So this needs to go in as a in your appendices section, and it's just a concise kind of one-page summarized version of your organization that just allows us to gauge kind of what's going on with your organization in terms of their structure, in terms of maybe their marketing capabilities and their resources, and an overall kind of description of what's going on with the products and services that they sell as well, which will allow us to kind of gauge the research in a kind of more beneficial manner. And then of course citing the appendices in your main body. So as I gave an example of there for target personas and so on and so forth. So you cite your appendices, and you will then also cite any content in your reference list. Please do check out the Harvard Referencing Guidelines for that if needed. Okay, so let's get into a checklist here, because this is obviously assignment 1 part 2, and it needs to be you need to be confident that you're submitting it. Please do submit it on time. Obviously that's goes without saying, but let's just run through some of these items just to make sure that you guys are all pretty confident in your work. First thing is, have I answered all the key questions? Sounds easy, but when we look at sometimes when you're conducting research, you can just go off on a slight tangent. So my advice is, when you're, particularly because you may have already started these sections, and that's fine, but if not, always have the assignment handbook beside you when you're writing your assignment, and just kind of stay in touch with it and say, this section needs this. Okay, maybe I've gone off a little bit too much here. I need to bring it back, and I need to focus just on this element. So really structure it that it's lending itself to the mandatory sections of each assignment. All right, it's really important, and it is an area that sounds easy to do, but sometimes it's good practice. I always have the assignment handbook beside me when I was actually conducting this myself as a student. Did you include all the sections? Right, very simple again, but make sure that you've got your content section, your subheadings in your section, and then just having it all there, including all the appendices elements as well that are needed. All right. Is there any irrelevant information or additional sections that you need to put in? And again, we do allow a 500 word tolerance, so it's a 5,000 word assignment. There is a bit of a scope there for an extra 500 words if you need to maybe just include something, maybe you want to remove something and then add in a bit of additional information. And there's also no need to include a introduction or a conclusion. Just need to give your executive summary and then run down through the mandatory sections and provide them as well. All right. Make sure your writing is formal, so avoid any kind of personal pronouns like I, we, you. This happens more often than you think, and particularly when students are talking about a company, they might say we have identified. No, just say information has identified, or identification of Google Analytics, or now, or losing the likes of I conducted research on this. It's just research conducted has showcased. Okay, keep it professional, keep it formal. Layout, include page numbers, table of contents, as I said there, and sub contents if needed. Please do proofread it, spell check it before final submission as well. And then that 5,000 to 500 word tolerance there as well. So 5,000 words is needed, all right? And try to match the effort to the amount of words that are approximately allocated to each section that are in the assignment hand guidelines as well. Okay. One other thing I'd like to say is your assignment cover page should include your name, and also the course code some students ask is PG 3.0. Okay, that's the course code you need to put on the front of your assignment. We do have a assignment front page template as well available on the learning platform, but you will need to put in PG 3.0 on the front of it. Okay guys, so I'm going to open it up now to some questions, which I may have answered, but nevertheless, I'm just going to have a look at the questions now. So I just have to load up the questions feed, so just bear with me, and then we'll run through some of the resources. Okay, so do appendices add to the word count? No, they do not. Good question. They do not. Your appendices, there's an unlimited amount of content that can go into your appendices actually. Okay, so you don't have to worry about the word count on that, but you will only be graded on the assignment itself, 5,000 word assignment. Appendices though can be used as a supporting element to that. So any content that you want to verify or reestablish can be put into your appendices, such as your surveys. And you'll be graded on that appropriately, okay? But not forgetting that there's no limit or addition to word count by using your appendices or reference list. But internal citations will count toward your word count overall. There's actually more information on what images are defined as inclusive of word count as well, particularly when you make your way into assignment 2. So that is available in the handbook. It talks about what is actually included and not included as word count specific to images, because graphs, or maybe you take a screenshot of social media which has a lot of words evident in it, that's actually not inclusive of word count because you're just showcasing something. But if you have the likes of your target personas developed, their main body frameworks or tables that need to be included, and they are inclusive of word count. Can you use state digital white paper as reference? Absolutely, 100%. Articles that you find, provided they're from verifiable sources, can be used as a reference. Yes, absolutely. Please do use it as a reference as well. It's a great starting point for that section. Would it be another question? Would it be acceptable for local would it be acceptable for local? Is it local to the company headquarters or local to the target audience? That's a good question. It's local to the target audience, really. Okay. Now, a lot of the time, depending on your company, it's going to be possibly one and the same, all right? But if you're looking for a local kind of case study in terms of it's where the tangible assets of the company is located. So if you're saying to yourself, okay, my target audience is, again, the Irish dealership, as I said, and it's in that local region, but maybe you're selling items just in one country, then you want to have it set up that it's in the local proximity of where we're selling. Okay, so say I had a sports equipment store and I was only selling to the UK and Ireland. On that as well at the end of this. I'm just going to run through some of the questions because I'm just wary of time. Okay, can you use the white paper as a reference? Would it be acceptable to use? Okay, so I'm just going to run through that question again just to give a bit more clarity on it. Would it be acceptable for local if the local company headquarters, or is it the local target audience? And as I said, it's usually one and the same, but in some respects, the local target audience would be where you're selling the contents to, okay, in a more local region. So if you were based in the likes of the UK, it's how you're selling in the proximity of the local distribution, okay? So if it's online, it's around like where are those products going to from where the operational headquarters are, and then you use your global case study examples as well. All right, so I hope that provides a bit of clarity on that. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the resources available that might help you guys out a little bit as well as you make your way through the final assignment. As I said, not forgetting the assignment guidelines, really beneficial. They go through all the elements that's really needed for the assignment sections. Okay, so please do use them. The research resources that we gave a bit of insights to here as well today in today's webinar could be beneficial to you, but not forgetting that Kevin Griffin actually has a module specific to the research methodology. So if you haven't done that, please do check that out. It's module 7 in the consumer and communication stream available on your learning platform. And that's a really beneficial module specific to research. The academic writing guidelines, Harvard referencing, not forgetting them as well when you want to ensure that your referencing is done properly. And then your online discussion area. So you have access to the class forum, you have access to the community forum as well. I'm on there as much as possible, and I'm trying to get as many concise insights back to students, but not forgetting to use the lecture content. The lecture videos from our subject matter experts, they really go into vast details, from anything from social listening to how to use channels and then how to measure performance on channels, all the way through to budgeting, to strategy. I mean, it's a vast array of what's needed for the assignment. You should gain insight specific to the channels that you're using and technologies that you're using as well. All right. So there you go, like not forgetting the assignment guidelines, the research resources, the academic writing guidelines available, the class form. You can also contact us via email on assignment queries at digitalmarketinginstitute.zendesk.com, or you can use the support form on the support section of your learning platform and just fill in that mandatory form, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Alternatively, you can use the knowledge base. I mean, the knowledge base is available through your learning platform as well. And that houses a lot of resources, concise kind of answers. So just search what you need, and hopefully you'll get the return on what you asked the question for. If you don't want to raise any queries with us directly and you just want to try and seek the information out for yourself. But really, guys, get into the course content as much as possible, because it's a great starting point, again, to just find some concise information on specific technologies, specific channels, and how to use those channels correctly from our subject matter experts. And then, you know, maybe you need to do some additional research, but it's a great element of finding out specific contents to technologies and also to digital marketing channels and how to use them correctly. Okay, guys, so that kind of concludes today's webinar. I'm just going to have a quick look to see, is there any final questions? Thank you very much. Thank you, guys, for everyone today's webinar. This will be available to download. So I hope it's been informative. Hope it's helped you out. Good luck in your assignments. Good luck on assignment 1. Please do join us for assignment 2 when we go through the sections as well. But for now, focus on assignment 1. And I hope this has been beneficial, and I'll upload it hopefully by the end of the day. And best of luck again, and have a great day.